When you speak truth over your life, everything changes. Not the kind of truth others try to tell you. Not the kind of truth that lives in books or doctrines, but the kind of truth that lives inside you. It's subtle, soft, and often ignored, because the world outside is louder. The world tells you what you should be, what you must accomplish, what is worthy, and in that noise, you lose your center. You start believing that your worth is measured by things you never chose, your achievements, your beauty, your success, but inside you, there is a voice. It has no name. It carries no titles. It whispers only truth. When you speak that truth over your life, not once but every day, something begins to shift. You stop reacting, you start responding, you stop chasing, you start remembering. You remember who you are before the world told you otherwise. You remember that peace is not something you find, it's something you return to. And that is the truth you must speak, not to the world, not to your followers, but to yourself, because when you speak that truth again and again, your nervous system calms, your breath slows down, the tightness in your chest begins to release. You are no longer in a fight. You are in surrender. Not the surrender of giving up, but the surrender of finally letting in the light that was always waiting for you. This is not theory. This is not some abstract spirituality. This is real. This is healing. The words you choose to say to yourself in silence, in pain, in tiredness are sacred. They are scripture, not because someone holy wrote them, but because they are yours. They were born of your suffering, of your stillness, of your remembering, and those scriptures, your personal sacred words, carry the power to rewrite the whole story. Because your life doesn't change when things around you shift. Your life changes when the way you see it shifts, and your vision is formed by the words you whisper to yourself when no one is listening. If you wake up today and say, "I am behind, I am not enough, I am not enough," then that becomes the prayer that shapes your day. But if you say, "I am exactly where I need to be, I trust the timing of my life, I don't need to rush, I need to breathe," then peace walks in, not in a dramatic way, but like sunlight gently coming through a window you forgot was open. When peace walks in, you stop looking for reasons to panic. You stop looking for ways to be validated. You stop creating problems just so you can fix them. You begin to live differently. You begin to live truthfully. And the first truth is this: nothing outside you can replace the quiet wisdom inside you. No relationship, no success, no possession can give you what your own presence can. Because you were not born empty. You were born whole. It's just that somewhere along the way you were told otherwise. So you went searching for worth, for meaning, for something to prove that you were okay. But the search was never meant to go outward. It was always a returning, a remembering, a homecoming to the truth that was always inside you. And when you return there, when you sit in silence long enough to hear your own breath, you start to hear it. That quiet whisper: you are already enough. You are already forgiven. You are already free. That whisper is the voice of God, of Source, of Spirit, not as a man in the sky, not as a doctrine in a book, but as the calm presence that's been sitting beside you all this time, waiting for you to stop running, stop proving, stop pretending, and just breathe. And in that breath, everything changes when you begin to see your thoughts not as absolute truths but as passing clouds in the sky of your awareness. Your entire relationship with yourself begins to transform. You no longer believe every fear. You no longer follow every doubt. You no longer bow to every old script that plays in your mind. Instead, you observe, with kindness, with curiosity, with patience. You start asking, is this thought true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? And slowly, gently, you begin to release the ones that aren't. This is the practice of inner renewal. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's powerful beyond measure, because the war we fight is rarely outside. It's inside, between the self that knows the truth and the self that was taught to forget. The self that knows says, you are safe, you are whole, you are loved. The self that forgets says, you must earn it, you are behind, you are never enough. But every time you choose to listen to truth over fear, something sacred happens. You return home, not to a place, but to a presence. And in that presence you find clarity, courage, compassion. You remember that your job is not to control every outcome. Your job is to show up, stay open, and let the truth do its quiet work, because when you live from truth, you no longer need to chase love, you become it. You no longer need to search for peace, you embody it. You no longer need to fear change, you trust it. This is the freedom that Scripture speaks of, not rules, not punishments, not fear, but the radical freedom of living from your soul. And it all begins with a whisper, a choice, a breath. Let this be the breath that brings you back. There comes a moment in every life when silence speaks louder than noise, when the voices of the world fade into the background, and what remains is stillness, ancient, sacred, undeniable. In that stillness, there are no achievements to post, no roles to perform, no masks to wear. There is only presence, and it is there in the soft presence of the now. That truth returns, not as an idea, not as a belief, but as a knowing that pulses through every cell of your being. You realize that all your running, all your striving, was an attempt to escape something that was never chasing you. You were never being hunted by failure, you were haunted by a lie. That you were not enough unless you became more, but truth has no conditions. It does not say you are loved if you are worthy when you are healed. After truth just says, you are. And when you hear that, really hear it, your breath softens, your shoulders drop, your eyes well up with tears. You didn't know you'd been holding back because the pressure to become something else finally begins to dissolve. You remember that peace isn't about having no problems. It's about no longer making your problems mean you're broken. You remember that healing isn't about fixing yourself. It's about meeting yourself in your mess and choosing to stay. And you remember that the sacred doesn't live only in temples or texts. It lives in your kitchen while you're washing dishes. It lives in your bedroom while you cry quietly at night. It lives in your breath, every inhale, every exhale, every pause in between. That's where God is, not above you, but within you. And when you start to see your life that way, as holy, exactly as it is, everything becomes different. Asterisk, you speak differently, you love differently, you forgive differently, you begin to bless your own life, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. You begin to say, even this is sacred, even this is part of the journey, even now, I am not alone. And those words, they are not just affirmations, they are resurrection spells calling the truth back from the dead places within you. Truth never dies. It just waits for you to stop agreeing with your shame, waits for you to stop obeying fear, waits for you to stop abandoning yourself to please others. Truth has infinite patience, and the moment you turn back toward it, no matter how long it's been, it embraces you as if you never left. That's grace, not because you earned it, not because you deserve it, but because that's what love does. It welcomes you home. So if you are tired, let this be your turning, not a performance, not a ritual, just a breath that says, I want to come back to myself. I want to remember what's real. I want to live in truth, not for others, but for me. And that's enough. That's more than enough, because when you return to truth, truth returns to you. It begins to shape your days in quiet ways. You begin to notice beauty in places you once ignored. You begin to feel gratitude not just for the good days, but for the honest ones. You begin to find God, not just in victory, but in vulnerability. Asterisk, and the most surprising thing of all, you begin to feel safe, not because everything is under control, but because you are no longer betraying yourself to chase things that never satisfied you. You are finally walking in alignment, speaking in alignment, loving in alignment, and in that alignment you stop needing to prove your worth. You just live. You become a living scripture, not written in ink, but in energy, a walking prayer, a breathing truth, and that is what changes the world. The greatest transformation doesn't begin with force, it begins with softness. Softness is not weakness, it is strength that has learned how to breathe. It's easy to tense up in a world that rewards armor, to clench your fists, to keep your guard up, to believe that survival requires you to be hard. But healing asks something different. It asks you to soften, especially toward yourself. It's not natural at first. It feels risky to relax. It feels dangerous to be gentle. But that's the trauma talking, not the truth, because truth knows that your softness is not your liability. It is your superpower. It is your softness that allows you to feel. And it is your feeling that brings you home. So many of us were taught to shut down emotion, to bury our grief, to hide our fear, to smile when we're breaking. And in doing so, we lost our sensitivity not just to pain, but to joy. But truth invites it all back. It says, you're allowed to feel the whole range. You're allowed to cry without apologizing. You're allowed to laugh without explaining. You're allowed to be human, gloriously, painfully human. And when you accept that, you stop performing wholeness and begin practicing honesty. You start saying, I'm not okay today. I'm hurting, but I'm healing. I don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. You stop needing to impress. You start needing to express. And expression is sacred, because every time you let truth move through you as a word, a tear, a breath, you clear out the lies that have lived inside you for too long. You detox the soul, and what's left? Stillness, compassion, presence. These are not dramatic qualities. They don't go viral. They don't shout, but they are the quiet roots of a powerful life. Stillness teaches you to wait before you react. Compassion teaches you to listen before you judge. And presence teaches you to stay, even when it's uncomfortable. That is real growth. Not changing who you are, but remembering who you were before you forgot. And remembering requires space. So give yourself space. To feel without fixing. To rest without guilt. To question without shame. Because healing is not a straight line, it's a spiral. You will return to old patterns, but with new eyes. You will revisit old wounds, but with deeper wisdom. You will face old fears, but with fresh courage. That's not failure. That's the path. And the more you walk it, the more you realize you are not lost. You are in process. Like a tree in winter. You may look bare, but deep down, life is preparing to bloom. So don't rush. Don't compare your timing to anyone else's. Don't measure your progress by someone else's highlight reel. Your healing is not late. Your peace is not gone. Your truth is not broken. It's all here, waiting under the noise, waiting for you to slow down, to turn inward, to listen. And when you finally do, when you finally sit still long enough to hear, you might be surprised at what rises. It won't be shame. It won't be judgment. It won't be criticism. It will be love. The kind of love that doesn't need conditions. The kind of love that doesn't ask you to earn it. The kind of love that says, I see you, I hear you, I've never left you. That is the voice of truth. It doesn't yell, it doesn't shame, it doesn't manipulate, it simply invites, come back, try again, rest here. And when you do, when you finally say yes to that voice, you begin to rise. Not in the way the world expects, not with fireworks and fanfare, but like dawn, slow, soft, inevitable. You rise because you remember, you were never meant to live disconnected from yourself. You were never meant to hustle for your worth. You were never meant to shrink to fit someone else's idea of who you should be. You were meant to live wide open, fully alive, rooted in truth. And that journey begins, not with striving, but with surrender. There is a kind of strength the world does not understand. It doesn't look like confidence. It doesn't look like charisma. It looks like quiet. The kind of quiet that holds steady through chaos. The kind of quiet that listens more than it speaks. The kind of quiet that has already made peace with who it is and no longer needs to prove anything. You don't get there by accident. You get there through the long, invisible work of coming home to yourself. The world may applaud noise. It may reward certainty. It may celebrate speed, but your soul doesn't thrive on any of those things. Your soul thrives on spaciousness, on truth, on honesty, on deep, unshakable integrity. Not the integrity that's about being perfect, but the kind that stays aligned. Even when no one is watching, that's where peace lives. Not in a lifestyle, not in a title, not in finally being successful, but in being able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I was true today. I didn't abandon myself to belong. I didn't betray myself to be loved. I didn't shrink to keep the peace. That kind of self-honesty is rare, but it's the beginning of freedom. But because when you stop lying to yourself about what hurts, about what's enough, about what you truly want, then you stop needing the world to validate you. You stop performing peace and start embodying it. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop chasing people who can't meet you. You stop abandoning your own needs just to keep someone else comfortable. And something extraordinary happens. You begin to trust. yourself again. Not the version of you that was shaped by pressure and praise, but the version that has always been there beneath the noise, the one who knows how to rest, how to breathe, how to be . And in trusting yourself, you reclaim your boundaries, not walls, not armor, but clear, compassionate lines that protect your peace. You begin to say things like, "This doesn't feel right to me. I need more time. My energy matters too." And instead of feeling guilt, you begin to feel grounded, because boundaries aren't selfish. They are sacred. They tell the world how deeply you value your own soul. And when you honor that, you stop attracting chaos. You stop being a magnet for people who drain you. You stop engaging in cycles that leave you empty. You stop participating in systems that reward burnout and call it ambition. You begin to live with intention, not just in your big decisions, but in the smallest ones. How you speak to yourself in the morning, what you consume online, how you spend the first 5 minutes of your day. Because truth isn't just found in spiritual retreats or dramatic awinj. It's found in the way you show up moment to moment, the way you show up moment to moment, the way you respond when you're tired, the way you breathe when you're anxious, the way you choose presence over performance. That's what builds a true life. Not a life that looks good on paper, but a life that feels like home in your body, in your breath, in your bones. And this kind of life doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It requires you to stay even when it's hard, to listen even when you want to numb, to trust even when nothing makes sense. Especially then, because the truth is, some days will feel like unraveling, like everything you thought was solid is dissolving, like you've lost your way. But what if you're not lost? What if you're just shedding old roles, old beliefs, old versions of yourself that were never yours to carry? And what if this unraveling is sacred? Not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. Not a failure, but a fierce grace. What if the very thing you fear, the falling apart, is what makes room for the real you to rise? Not the curated you, not the performing you, but the one who has nothing left to prove, only something to embody. That is truth, and truth doesn't always feel safe. It doesn't always feel pretty. It doesn't always make sense, but it always brings you back to center, to breath, to peace. And that is where your power lives. Not in control, not in perfection, but in presence. You are not late to your life. You are not behind. You are exactly where your healing needs you to be. And I know that's hard to believe when the world runs on timelines and trophies, when everything around you is built to make you feel insufficient. But the truth doesn't live in timelines, it lives in trust. You are not here to catch up. You are here to wake up, to remember what's real, to return to what matters, to rebuild, not the life others expect, but the one your soul aches for. And rebuilding doesn't always look like growth. Sometimes it looks like stillness, like saying no, like letting go of the very thing you thought would save you. That's the paradox of healing. It often feels like you're losing everything when really, you're finding yourself. And in that loss, in that sacred undoing, you begin to see what was never yours. The masks, the coping, the self-sacrifice disguised as love. You begin to see how much of your life was built around avoiding pain instead of moving through it. But now, something is different. You're not avoiding anymore. You're not pretending anymore. You're not waiting for someone to come rescue you. You are turning inward, and that changes everything. Because when you turn inward, you meet the parts of you that have been exiled. The fear, the shame, the grief. But you don't meet them to fix them. You meet them to love them, to say, you don't have to hide anymore. You're allowed to exist here too. You are not a problem. You are a part of me. That kind of inner welcome is what alchemy is made of. It's how wounds become wisdom, how pain becomes power, how survival becomes sacred. And eventually the parts of you that once screamed for attention, they soften because they've been heard, they've been held, and you begin to breathe differently. Not just because you're calm, but because you're whole. You no longer need to be fixed. You only need to be felt. And when you feel yourself truly, gently, without judgment, you start to live from a deeper place, not from performance, not from fear, but from truth. And truth doesn't rush. It doesn't compete. It doesn't compare. It simply is. So, let your life become a practice of truth. Let every moment be an invitation to return, to remember, to release. You don't have to know the answers. You just have to be honest about the questions. And when the questions get heavy, let your breath be your anchor. Let your breath say, I am here, I am safe, I am allowed to rest. Because healing is not a destination, it's a rhythm, a daily remembering that you are not your past, not your pain, not your productivity. You are presence, you are love, you are light, even on the days you forget, especially then. So if today feels heavy, if the silence is loud, if the path is unclear, take a deep breath. You are not alone, you are not broken, you are becoming. And as you become, remember this, you don't have to do it all. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it truthfully, one breath at a time, one moment at a time, one gentle return at a time. You are the prayer. You are the answer. You are the miracle. And you always have been. If these words touched something inside you, or if a part of you feels seen, heard, or held, then maybe it's not just a coincidence that you found this. Maybe your soul brought you here to remind you of what you already know but forgot how to feel. So stay with it. Let the truth settle in. Let it echo, and if it helped you breathe a little deeper today, share it with someone else who needs to remember too. Like, comment, subscribe. Not because it helps the channel, but because it helps the message find those who've been waiting in the silence just like you. And when you're ready, come back. There will always be space for you here. Until then, keep returning to your breath. It knows the way home.